Inner city white suburban kids, though. I mean, or
Yeah,
just inner
families
city.
got guns.
They'll have a kid. They might have guns in there. If those kids didn't have those firearms readily available, you can't go down to the streets of Loveland and get a gun. You can't on the street.
Right.
You can't.
But that's like saying
It's dumb. And I'm telling you, that could be
suburban white kids. That's like saying if
No, that's the real
you
truth.
don't give them money, allowances or whatever, or they have bank accounts that they won't go get drugs and get high. Like,
I'm just saying if it's not readily available,
you don't
they're not being out. No one's being their best outgoing self to go outsource and do all this stuff. Something's right in front of you. You're going to take advantage of it.
What's happening, y'all? And welcome to Hustle and Heart, where we confront hard issues like addictions and failure. Here to give you all the jewels you need to treasure your life. I'm your host, William Hustle, with my big brother, Big Pat.
You already know.
And we're continuing this series, Get It Out. On this episode, we'll be talking about losing loved ones to suicide. So let's get it. So, very, very topic, subject.
This is a heavy subject.
I mean,
it really is. Yeah, this is. But I think we're seeing such a huge uptick, and now we're seeing people in our own lives that are being affected by this. So
mental illness.
I mean, it's sometimes it's just life, man.
It's
sometimes it's just life. I mean, it doesn't have to be mental illness, but you can, it's unfortunate, but you can be
the
just
wrong mental thought at the wrong time.
Yeah, or just loss of a job. Maybe they downsize. Maybe something happens.
And the wrong mental thought. At the wrong time, yeah.
Perfect storm.
I'm getting what you're saying, but
I mean that's what. There doesn't have to be somebody with mental illness, but
mental illness comes in many forms.
Well, I think there can be some very negative thinking. I wouldn't call that mental illness.
Okay.
So I mean I think that's where mental illness means you're possibly bipolar. You're diagnosed with severe depression. I think that life.
Well, my family has always called me bipolar.
Yeah,
seriously. And I'm not.
I just think that the circumstances in life sometimes can envelop us in so much negativity that there doesn't seem to be hope, and that's not mental illness, but it's just putting all of our weight into some really negative thinking.
Understood.
So,
before we really jump into it, let's give our quote of the day.
So today,
I'm gonna let him pass because normally he say the quote of the day, but he just bought him a brand new 2021, so we're behind a few shows. So once again, our quote of the day.
So I think it's important that we all stop running from our mistakes, from our failures, from our decisions. We must stop running from our past. We deserve to be loved without hiding parts of ourselves. Maybe our past isn't pretty. Maybe it's messy and complicated. But isn't that what makes us truly beautiful? The fact that we can face disappointment, we can face sorrow, we can face pain, and despite it all, we survive. We do not live in the past, but accept it for what it is. Accept that it's your story. Accept that it's your journey. Today, remember that our past does not define us, but it has prepared us. It has shaped us. It has made us a little bit stronger, wiser, understanding, caring, and empathetic. Embrace what has shaped us. We are worthy. Love yourself, live in the moment, and enjoy this beautiful day.
So
that I think in some way we allow the circumstances around us to not only define us, but then to shape the rest of our lives. I wanted to put some positive spin because without hope, without the understanding that what we've been through has given us the tools to make us and help us not only appreciate our goals, but to accomplish our goals. I think that's the big thing here is that there is always hope. If you're breathing, there's hope. You know,
There's hope. But the two people that I've personally been affiliated with that has committed suicide, it wasn't no long period of time where they showed any type of anything that would make anyone think that they would commit suicide.
right?
So it was a short span of time, which suicide catches anyone
Right.
off guard.
We
But
don't- we
a
don't-
lot of
yeah.
lot of times where I've seen people talk, I've heard like, well, he had issues, or he's been going through it. The two that I've known wasn't going through any financial stress, wasn't going through any type of hard times that
Yeah.
we knew about. But
You've got we don't. This is a very sensitive topic. So, not saying any names or relations or anything else, but you personally knew someone as of late, and in that one circumstance, wasn't there illness that surrounded that beforehand? So there was an actual circumstance that might have took him out of
that
his
could
zone.
have caused it, but not anything where this is one of the last things that, knowing him, you would think he would do.
Right.
But yeah, and it's
Kind of eerily, like you had kind of said to me when I was talking to you about this, that one of the last things that was mentioned to you was, I'm not feeling myself.
right.
I'm not feeling myself.
And
And I mean, that's almost prophetic and like,
and it was like, you don't know if you're gonna wake up tomorrow, but you don't know if for however long you can be thinking something and not be here tomorrow.
right? I think it's such a especially when you see young people, and there's someone that I had coached in youth football and went through, was affiliated with my children, played sports with them, and there was a suicide there. But you think of how bad that has to be, how to be that sad and that to feel like there was no other outlet. It just makes you think. It's one thing if somebody our age, 45, does it.
Right.
But if you have a child do it, someone in their teens, that's definitely that's a whole different ballgame. And I think it raises some eyebrows as to what can be done. What can be if a child can't doesn't feel like they can go to people that are close to them.
But majority of people don't feel like that they can go to the people that we know.
Yeah.
I mean, they say go to your pastors and people like that, but it's like, hey, the pastor know my mom. The pastor know my sister.
Is this going to get back to my parents?
Seriously. The people that we are instructed to go to is, is too close to home. Facts. Suicide is the 10th leading cause of death. Men have a suicide rate of 3.7 times higher than women. The shock of it all, it ruins families and communities.
Absolutely.
What is your thoughts on that?
Well,
Suicide.
yeah, I had to look up some some facts here that go along with what you were saying, and I think this really should raise some eyebrows. I mean, because this is something that you're not affected by it until you're affected by it.
Affected by it.
And
you can see it on TV and all around you.
And I think too many of us have an idea that this would never happen to us. This could never happen to us. My family, no, my kids talk to me. This could never but man, I'm telling you, like you see average kids this last thing that happened, I remember this child being a 9-year-old boy, and he was happy. And in a 10-year time frame, something changed. So and the world,
the way he thought,
the world warped him to so much just a negativity that there was no other way out. And I think that's a tragedy. That's a tragedy.
It's a tragedy. Period.
And it's just you want to be able to be a light so that other kids don't have to think that there's no way out. I mean, so anyway,
we have to get more resources.
Going by the, and again, I think we're going to have this number up, but the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline is 1-800-273-8255, and that is a 24-hour hotline. And I think that's a number that we'll keep kind of throwing out through the rest of the show. Going over some statistics, though, again, just to raise awareness of this. When someone dies by suicide, like any cause of death, the loss is felt by many. The ripples of loss spread from close family and friends to community members, acquaintances, and even people the deceased did not know. All those exposed to the loss may experience different levels of grief and trauma. Nationally, the suicide rate increased 25.4% from 1999 to 2016, with increases occurring in every state except for Nevada. In 2018, there were an estimated 1.4 million suicide attempts and more than 48,000 deaths by suicide, making it the 10th leading cause of death in the United States. Firearms were involved in half of all suicides, and there were more than twice as many deaths by suicide than by homicide. So for everybody out there that's murdered, we have double the amount of suicides, which is already, I mean, the people that are murdered in this country is already a crazy number. But to have a suicide rate that's double that, I don't know what bigger statistic you need for a cry for help than that. Societal costs associated with suicide and suicide attempts were estimated at $93.5 billion. These costs include lifetime medical fees and lost work costs. I think the overall message here is that we have something that's not leveling off or not, it's climbing. And
so many people are trying to bring it to the awareness, but it's with war, with drugs, all these things, it's like suicide.
I think
gets
it's
pushed to the side.
It absolutely does, and I think it's more along the lines of if it's not directly affecting you, then it's not a problem. You know.
Yes.
It's like anything in this world. We're complacent on it until it directly is straight in front of us. Period. You know, and that's.
But who?
You save people by caring. You save people by having awareness, but it takes an empathetic heart. It takes people that see this for what it is, and it's an epidemic. It's becoming an epidemic when you have 48,000 Americans, people in this country dying from suicide.
Suicide.
I mean, that's 14.2 people for every 100,000.
And they show more drug deaths. But those of us left behind from loved ones who have taken their lives have to pick up the pieces. Things happen in life, and the one thing that you and I live by is no matter what happened, we find whatever goodness we could find in this situation to keep our mind clear. Because your mind can't be clear when you allow too much negative to capture your attention. But I think it's time to to make a call, and I want to know who we plan on. Who do we have that we are calling today?
We're gonna call Riley. Riley's grown up in Loveland.
Okay.
And he personally, growing up now, has experienced two people that he knows have committed suicide, and it's definitely something just in perspective as far as what we could do, and just letting him talk a little bit about that. Before we call Riley, though, there are some, and actually we can give him a call now, but I do want to go after we're off the call, cover some preventative measures that we can take and that should be, I think, acknowledged moving forward as far as just some of that. So yeah, let's give Riley a call. Hey, Rye.
What's going on?
Nothing much, man. You're on.
How you doing, Riley?
How we doing?
Not bad, man.
Hey, well, I'm doing fantastic, brother.
I feel it.
We appreciate you coming on tonight. And our topic, as a lot of our topics on Get It Out, is some of them are a little bit more heavy than others. But just there's been an epidemic in this country since 2016. Suicides have gone up 25%. And that equals out to about 14.8 suicides per 100,000 people.
Before the pandemic.
I mean, so double the amount of people commit suicide as there are homicides. People killed by guns, and that number alone seems crazy. But again, we had talked to you. Glad you could come on the show.
We appreciate you.
I'm happy to talk on here. First time, y'all got to get me back on after I.
Oh, most definitely. We want to get you here.
This is
the studio with us.
Yeah, this is Rod a kid.
Yeah.
So he's up and coming. But Riley, you're definitely you're a very creative force. You're an entertainer, and you do a lot of stuff as far as being around a lot of different kids in the community. Growing up now, in the past and as of recently, there have been kids you've known that have committed suicide. As someone who's seen a lot growing up, in your opinion, what's the cause for the uptick in suicides? Is there maybe a disconnect somewhere?
Honestly, I feel like the disconnect stems from the social dilemma, that just being social media and just people not really taking this vessel or this chance at life for what it's worth. And unfortunately, that stems from like various different things, from hobbies to what you're spending your time doing and fucking people you're around. And I think some people tend to take this for granted. And other people don't really see the good and would rather end it short because they feel like they don't have purpose or they feel like they're not enough. And that's just what's been programmed to them because they're all set to such a false standard at such a young age.
So it's definitely an environmental thing, you feel, as well, just as far as not feeling that there's an outlet for more positivity or even support or just to talk.
Yeah.
Riley, what is your profession?
I would say my profession is being a creative, just being well-rounded and like spinning a bunch of different plates. Don't like put myself in a box. And you can be an artist, but everybody's gonna ask, "What's your practice?" When you're creative, people just want to see what you're doing. You know what I mean? So
you've put out several music videos and stuff right now. So you've I think you've definitely as far as music goes, but I know that you've got a lot of aspirations as far as your design and art stuff too.
Hell yeah.
Now, with the uptick that we've seen, do you feel that there's a lack of outlets for kids? Because again, you're a teenager still, or actually, no, you're not. You turned 20, but again, just being a younger male, do you feel like there's a lack of outlets for kids now, as far as, or is it something that's maybe frowned upon, or you feel like they wouldn't be accepted talking about some serious issues that were bothering them?
Yeah, I mean, maybe not a lack of outlet. I feel like it might just be a lack of understanding. They feel as if like people won't understand or be able to sympathize for what they have going on. And again, that's just part of being you don't even have to be a young male. Just like males in general, you're taught to hide feelings and
Yeah.
not really.
The,
Yeah, so
the,
that'll wear and tear you.
statistics say that men have a higher suicide rate at 3.7 times higher than women.
I believe it. They gotta take the weight on, all the weight.
Women strong, man. We strong, but these women are strong. So at the beginning, did Pat mention that you be out here trying to mentor and talk to the youth?
Yeah, I try my best to lead by example, and
As far as being out there and trying to be a positive influence and trying to inspire people to, do their best, is that a message that you think is important to get sent to, younger kids?
The biggest thing is just being yourself and doing what makes you happy, and I think a lot of people are out of touch with that too.
Agree. I agree. We just want to put this out here again. The National Suicide Prevention Hotline Lifeline is 800-273-8255.
Riley, I appreciate you coming on tonight, and we're definitely going to have you on again in the future as far as what you have upcoming with your music, and then just being someone that's definitely an inspiration and a creative force for other young artists and just other young people in general.
And keep fighting for life, brother.
What's that?
Yes, sir. Day by day. I said I'm looking forward to it. And yes, sir. Day by day.
Yes, sir. We appreciate you, Riley.
All right, Riley. Much love. Have a great night.
Stay up, yo. Yep, you too.
How can we help prevent suicide? How can people find another way to cope with depression? Questions that there's no one answer to. Like we keep putting out there, the number one thing where no one knows you, you don't know them. The National Suicide Prevention Hotline Lifeline, 800-273-8255.
Definitely some other stuff that we can touch on as far as you can have, with this, if you've got 48,000 people that have lost their life to this, you could have universal screening at emergency rooms. There's a whole list here. Safety planning on emergency rooms to assist patients already identified as being suicidal. Patients receive a prioritized list of evidence-based coping strategies and sources of support. This intervention also provides telephone follow-ups until the patient receives treatment. And then cognitive behavioral therapy to identify suicidal thoughts, images, and beliefs before they lead to suicide attempt. Collaborative care, team-based approach to suicide prevention among the patient, their care manager, and primary care provider to develop a treatment plan. And a big one, since half of all suicides involve a firearm, reducing access to lethal means. I mean, if you know that you have a child that might be struggling, I mean, is it good to have?
But what about when you don't?
I mean, if there was no guns in the house, if there's no guns in the house, though, you know what I'm saying? Like, do you want to? If you know that there's a powder keg, are you going to light a match and have that there? No. I just think that there's some things as far as and then being safe with weapons as well. If you need to have weapons, if you're hunters, whatever, I understand.
But I don't think that
if you don't have a gun, there's no gun suicide. That's half of all deaths,
yeah.
Half of all suicides. So that's 24,000 people
but
shot
I don't
themselves.
Think people who commit suicide by finding a gun in the house.
Well, 24,000 of them do.
By finding a gun in the house.
Of course, I mean that's there's a good enough of them do to where what the hell? I mean, at least keep that. I mean, don't have other options. I mean, but yeah, there's always if somebody is to that point, but the whole thing is to not let them get to that point. I'm just saying if half of all suicides involve a firearm, then there's a big issue.
But they go and get the guns.
Not all the time. I mean, there's guns in the house.
A lot of them already have their guns.
Yeah.
But you can't deny unless you know a person. I think it's like you have to be mentally stable enough to be able to get a firearms permit. And I know a lot of us get them illegal and things like that. But for those who
Inner city white suburban kids, though, I mean, or just inner
families
city,
got guns.
they'll have a kid. They might have guns in there. If those kids didn't have those firearms readily available, you can't go down to the streets of Loveland and get a gun. You can't on the street.
Right.
You can't.
But that's like saying
It's done. And I'm telling you, that could be
suburban white kids. That's like saying if
now that's the real
you
truth.
don't give them money, allowances or whatever, or they have bank accounts that they won't go get drugs and get high. Like,
I'm just saying if it's not readily available,
you don't.
They're not being out. No one's being their best outgoing self to go outsource and do all this stuff. Something's right in front of you. You're going to take advantage of it, and in different means. Something's not right in front of you, then you know that's not an option. Especially if they're not out driving around. If you're 14 years old, you don't have all those outlets. It's not like you could drive somewhere. Yeah, especially up in. I mean, I know where you can get drugs at in Loveland, and those people ain't selling to 14-year-olds.
I get it. This pandemic and economic crisis has put a painful pressure on all of us. There's no nationality that it just did not affect. It's important to check in with your family members. Once again, family member of mine with no sign just took his own life, and with no sign. Just, it's one of the reasons we're doing this episode today. Now it's the time for unity and compassion. Family counseling is important. Encouraging our depressed families and friends to go to therapy is crucial. And when you can't afford it, this is when you turn to your neighborhood. This is when you turn to your churches, your community centers. This is what they're really supposed to be there for.
My best advice came free. It came in meetings. It came in free meetings. I did AA. I had people that were in my family and in my support group that gave me just a good. They were good sounding boards and were good listeners. A lot of our family. There's a lot of love in most families. I'm not going to.
But we think otherwise because mentally we thinking other things.
I think that you need to be able to. You got to be able to talk. You got to be able to communicate.
You got to be able to get it out.
You got to be able to get it out.
You have to be able to get it out.
But you got to communicate with. You have to have an open channel with everyone, especially parents and children. I think with technology sometimes it's easier to throw an iPad or an Xbox or a PlayStation 5 and say, "Oh, my child's happy," than actually do the stuff that builds those bonds and relationships. Because sometimes I feel like with the state that we're in, it's like seeing families out to eat and everybody's on their phone, staring at their phone. There's no connection. It's all about
communication. Is one of the hardest things, and now
we have to communicate.
With the way the world is, we only communicate through our phones,
which is
we'd rather be texting
scary.
someone else instead of talking to someone in front of us. But it's the same as we'd rather be in the house playing.
And it can't, like you talk to
PlayStation before going outside.
But you talk to younger kids,
yes,
and you see they can't even make eye contact with you because they're so used to communicating by staring through this thing that's touching through their arm. It's like a connection to them.
In my opinion, that's what I feel like the world.
So
this is how they want us to communicate.
Well, I'm just saying that, but it's caused a disconnect with younger. I'm
not saying I'm with it.
We know what it's like to not have a cell phone attached to us. We grew up that way.
But we also know that this cell phone is more powerful than the teachers and the parents.
Here's the thing, though: this cell phone can't give you an empathetic heart. It's a piece of machinery.
Period.
You need someone that not only can understand you, but that can give you some love and some light. And those people are out there. And that's what we have to strive to do. It's not just one person, because again, this doesn't affect any of us until it affects us. And when it does, it's what could we have done? What could this? It's always looking back in retrospect. So now, those of us with, the ability to do so need to try to make this not only aware, but bring other things to the light so that people have sources. They don't feel like they're lost. And the biggest thing is to think about teenagers committing suicide and having no other hope or thought than this is the best way out. And
my parents never knew everything that I was doing, like I'm pretty sure yours didn't.
No.
So we can be whatever we choose to be in this world. So, life is so precious. We all need each other. Sound soft?
No.
Sound cliche?
No, it's that I think it's important that that we all come together as one collective more and more under an umbrella of love than anything that would differentiate us from each other. Because I tell people I had trouble because we had one topic we were going to work on, which was racial stuff, and I'm like, man, I don't see. Me. I don't see and there's certain.
And I
topics,
always tell you, but you have to see it. My wife is the same way, but I tell her you.
I don't see colors in this
but
world.
You have to see it. You have to see.
I see good hearts.
The
and
differences.
Bad hearted. You just see people from
right,
their
but
heart.
you have to see the differences and why we get treated different. You have to see it to acknowledge it, to understand it coming from my point of view. And it's you and my wife, y'all don't want to see it because.
We just don't live that.
Don't think like that
at all.
But you have to see it. That's the only way things going to change, is for you to see it and be like, "Oh no, that's not cool."
But going back to the topic, we I think we all have this. My point being is that sometimes we find a topic that is not only very heavy, but it's also a very emotionally hard to deal with and hard to talk about and
that
hard
you
to accept.
Get out.
You have to.
Period. Point blank.
And if you to think that it's a subject that's taboo and you can't talk about it, then all it does is just encourage that behavior to continue to happen over and over and over again. And that's what we have here with 14.8 people out of 100,000 committing suicide each year,
and 3.7 men suicide rate higher than women.
Right.
National Suicide Prevention Lifeline Hotline, 800-273-8255. And we want to thank you all. You've been listening to Hustle and Heart, where we give you real talk from real people out here living life for real. I'm your host, William Hustle, and I'm here with my brother and co-host, Big Pat.
Much love, everyone. We'll talk to you next week.
And if you like what you heard, feel free to subscribe and share. You can head over to williamlyles.today to stay connected. Remember that when you know who you are, you can be free anywhere. Thank you for listening to Get It Out.